It seems that we can't have an election these days without some sort of riot or insurrection happening both during and after. And you might be thinking to yourself, what on earth has happened to the world? Well, let me tell you, nothing has happened to the world. Election violence is as common as, well, elections. And it was all the rage throughout the late Georgian and into the Victorian period. In the 10 general elections held between 1832 and 1885, the fair medieval city of Nottingham descended into riot in all bar one of them. According to the Victorian Election Violence Project at Durham University, yeah, that's gotta be a great thing to work on, 1865 was a particularly dangerous year. During the election campaign, there were 43 mass disturbances, there were 21 full-scale riots requiring military intervention, and there were 6 deaths. Pretty impressive stuff for a 23-day campaign. And this might seem bizarre to us now, and rightly so, but there was a couple of major differences between how elections were conducted now and how elections were conducted back then that go a long way to explaining how some of these situations can occur. The first consideration is just a simple lack of people who have the vote, who have the franchise. Even after the Representation of the People Act of 1884, this only gave the vote to 60% of the adult male population. You're still left with 40% of men and 100% of women, total about 70% of the actual population, still don't have the vote, and therefore without any representation or peaceful method of influencing the government. Now, in an age where there were more and more things the government did to the people and fewer things the people could do to the government, politicians had never been held in greater contempt by the people than they were then. And contemptuous British people throw things. The people of the 18th and 19th centuries threw a lot of things at a lot of politicians, and the main missiles being fruit, vegetables, and that staple of the campaign trail, eggs. And you want to bear in mind as well that this is an age before modern refrigeration techniques, and therefore there's a much higher proportion of rotten fruit, vegetables and eggs that can be thrown at politicians. It was done with such regularity it became expected. Tory candidate Philip Papillon brought an umbrella to the hustings at Colchester in 1865 in the very anticipation of eggs, fresh and rotten, that he would be greeted with, and it turned out to be a good choice, because he was. Mud was another easy to come by and effective weapon in the hands of the unfranchised, particularly as it was always on hand, and it was available for those people who had not prepared suitable ammunition in advance for their opposing candidate. But you know our channel by now, and we're into the bizarre. And here, the good people of England do not disappoint. During the election campaign of 1892, none other than would-be Prime Minister William Gladstone was hit with, of all things, a ginger nut biscuit. And this begs in me an awful lot of questions. This is someone clearly who Gladstone annoys so much that they're going to lose their temper and throw their biscuits. What could possibly have been said on the campaign trail that would cause an English woman, and it was a woman, to put down her tea and launch her biscuits? I'm not sure we'll ever know. At an election hustings in Derby, also in 1865, local candidate Michael Bass was pelted with dead cats, dogs and rabbits. Now, this was probably in his connection to his support for the night poaching bill. But the fact that this was an indoor meeting with tickets and limited numbers suggests that the people attending deliberately brought a range of dead animals for this very purpose. But taking the crown for this are the people of Cambridge. Well done to you, people of Cambridge. And their weapon of choice, the herring. Yes, the herring. Now, this was an election count, the results, and as the newspapers state, herrings also, which appeared in some local but not very intelligible fashion to connect themselves with the anger of the Liberal crowd, were held up, shaken at Lord Royston, and finally thrown towards the Conservative side of things. Bear in mind that this is at the declaration of the results. Those Liberal supporters had, of course, taken a herring to an election count in case they lost. That is commitment to your cause, and quite frankly, passing milkshake is just amateur by comparison. Now, the second factor that leads to violent elections being quite common, and this may surprise some of you, is that MPs have only been elected by secret ballot since 1872. In fact, the ballot box from the first by-election by secret ballot is on display at Pontefract Museum, having been used to elect Hugh Childers on the 15th of August 1872. In a hat tip to the local industry as well, it was sealed with licorice. Before the Ballot Act of 1872, those who could vote had to declare that vote in public, and this was open to bribery, corruption and intimidation. And further to this, until the Corrupt and Illegal Practices Act of 1883, candidates used to oil the wheels of election time by laying on as much free alcohol as they could afford. Given that they came from the rich classes, that could be quite a lot. The general passions and emotions that an election arouses can be dangerous enough, but add a whole host of alcohol into the mixture as well, and you're just asking for trouble. Free beer can lead to many a spontaneous outbreak of violence, but the incident I'm interested in now was in Trowbridge in Wiltshire in November of 1868, where a rampaging mob of those without the vote targeted Conservative supporters and polling stations throughout the day. And there was a good reason why these people didn't have the vote. They were pretty much all under the age of 12. As cited in the local news, as the election day wore on and the Conservative candidates started to develop a lead, a small group of boys, all wearing yellow paper bands, under the leadership of several youths who appeared to have been appointed for the purpose, began to cause much disturbance. They'd been hired in by the Liberals. Any Conservative coach was pelted with mud to the point where one driver was blinded and a passenger had to take over to avoid a crash. The day ended with special constables having to be sworn in and then individually clearing the streets. And for all this, it didn't do the Liberals any good either. Sir George Jenkinson won the seat with an astonishing 66% of the vote. Yeah. Following the end of the Great War, the franchise was extended to many women and all men, and then some 10 years later to all women as well, and this has put paid to much of this election violence. Today our candidates no longer have to face the, and I quote, rotten eggs and dead cats of Chichester. We have a much more peaceable system, even if it still disappoints everyone most of the time. But the point of our democratic system is not to be the best way of choosing the right government. Hell, I don't think it's ever done that. But it is the best way of removing a bad one. It's the best way we have of avoiding this violence, of avoiding bloody revolution, and avoiding civil wars. And in that, it's doing a damn good job. Thanks very much for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.